Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Royal News, where we explore the real stories behind the spotlight. Today, we will talk about a moment that surprised many people, and even the characters in this story could not have expected. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, a couple once praised as symbols of freedom and courage, were now booed in a stadium in Los Angeles. A seemingly normal moment, but if you look deeper, it clearly reflects the change in the way the public perceives them. From admiration to skepticism, from sympathy to indifference, and finally negative reactions. From that moment on, everything seemed to have turned a different page. The glitz, the applause, and the once vaunted image of a power couple, all of it suddenly became a luxury. People began to ask, what happened to Meghan Markle, who was once considered the people's princess? Why did a person who once represented the desire for freedom now become a symbol of calculation and hypocrisy in the public eye? Actually, everything did not happen overnight. The change in the way people viewed Meghan came from small actions. Her media appearances, her seemingly cryptic statements, and especially the way she used her image after leaving the royal family. When Meghan said she wanted to live a normal life, people believed her. But when she and Harry signed a multi-million-dollar deal with Netflix, launched her own podcast, and continued to launch a business called American Riviera Orchard, that belief began to waver. The public felt they didn't really want to leave the spotlight, but just wanted to change the way they enjoyed it. No longer controlled by the royal family, but still living in the spotlight. And then, in Hollywood, where ostentation and ambition are obvious, Meghan seemed to have lost what made her most beloved: sincerity. In the eyes of many, she was no longer the independent actress she once was, but a woman trying to turn the title Duchess into a personal brand. She appeared at events, launched products, and it seemed that wherever there was a camera, Meghan was there. But Hollywood was not so accepting. It was full of real stars, people who didn't need royal titles to shine. And when Meghan tried to force her way into that world as Sussex, she felt out of place. Because in California, where everything revolves around talent, charisma, and self-image, relying on the title of princess only made her seem more pretentious. The irony is that the Americans who once welcomed her with open arms were the first to turn away. They didn't hate Meghan, but they were tired. They felt they were being dragged into a story that should have ended long ago. Every time she spoke of the pain of being treated unfairly or the suffocation of the palace, audiences saw it as a familiar media tactic. And then, when she smiled brightly in those frames with Harry at the Montecito mansion, people no longer saw a victim, but someone enjoying a lavish life thanks to the very reputation she said she hated. The moment of booing at the Dodgers was therefore not just the reaction of a few difficult viewers. It is the result of years of image accumulation when Meghan has revealed a huge gap between her words and actions. She says she wants to help the community, but spends most of her time building her personal brand. She says she doesn't want to be surrounded by the media, but she always appears in front of the cameras with stories revolving around herself. And the public, very sensitive to fakery, has realized that. And Harry, who was once considered a sincere rebel prince, is now also caught up in his wife's image. He talks about privacy, about the harmful effects of social media, about the responsibility of the media, but his wife uses social media to promote products and images. People begin to feel that he is stuck between ideals and reality, between protecting the person he loves and the contradiction in his own beliefs. So when Dodgers fans whistle, they're not just targeting Meghan or Harry, they're reacting to an entire symbol that has lost its original meaning. They once loved two people who dared to leave the royal family to be themselves. But now, they see two people trying to live like other Hollywood stars, trying to cling to the spotlight they once said they wanted to stay away from. Instead of being seen as an independent icon, Meghan has gradually made the public feel like she's using her royal title to enter the world of Hollywood. From the shocking interview with Oprah Winfrey to the Netflix documentary series, podcasts, and personal projects, all revolving around telling her story. At first, the audience sympathized, but over time, that feeling seems to have turned to fatigue. Because the public can't listen to the same story forever. especially when they see Meghan and Harry still living in the spotlight and fame. For Hollywood, Meghan Markle is a special case. She was an actress, had her own career, and no one denied her efforts. But since becoming the Duchess of Sussex, her trajectory has changed. From an independent woman, she has transformed into an image of a person who was treated unfairly by the royal family. However, in Hollywood, a place that honors authenticity and individual creativity, that image is not easy to resonate with. When Meghan launched her American Riviera Orchard brand, which includes jams, candles, and royal-themed ornaments, the reaction from the American public was mixed. Many questioned whether this was a genuine business endeavor or just a way to continue to exploit the appeal of the royal title. Meghan wanted to be recognized as an independent woman, but the public viewed her through a more cautious lens. And then, when she and Harry appeared at Dodger Stadium, the seemingly friendly moment became a public test. The contrasting reactions from the audience that day made many realize the image of royal victims no longer seemed to be as sympathetic as before. Both were in a difficult position. In the UK, they were seen as people who had abandoned tradition, and in the US, they had not really won the trust of the audience. A paradox that left them straddling two worlds, no longer completely belonging to either. Harry, meanwhile, finds himself in a different predicament. He has always spoken of the value of privacy, condemning the media for invading his personal life. He has sued the British press and criticized social media for its harmful effects. However, the public sees Meghan, his wife, still using social media to promote products, share family photos, and cleverly link all activities to her personal brand. Every time their children appear in public, searches for American Riviera Orchard increase sharply. That makes Harry's message contradictory. People ask, if they really hate the media, why do they still rely on it to maintain their reputation? All of that makes the public lose trust, not because they dislike Harry and Meghan, but because they no longer feel they are trustworthy. The story of love, of courage, of the search for freedom that once moved the world is now just a clever branding campaign. When trust is lost, every smile, every speech, every friendly image becomes awkward. The baseball game in Los Angeles, the night they were booed, was the clearest proof. Even though they sat in VIP seats, even though they wore sports caps, even though they tried to smile brightly, they still could not hide the fact that the public no longer believed in the image of heroes who escaped the royal family. For many Americans, the whistling that night was not an act of disrespect, but a warning. Just because you leave the royal family does not mean you become a symbol of freedom. And just because you are famous does not mean you are loved. In fact, if you look at the whole picture, this couple is facing a serious media crisis. The Sussex brand, once a symbol of courage, has now become an example of the abuse of fame. The projects they participated in, from documentaries, podcasts to Spotify contracts, all ended early, not meeting expectations. Even Netflix, which once paid them more than $100 million, is losing interest. And in the meantime, the public is starting to turn away. The point is, the booing at the Dodgers is not an act of hostility, but a natural reaction when trust is eroded. Harry and Meghan may have once made people believe they were victims of an old system, but now they have become an example of how power and fame can change people quickly. Sympathy is gradually turning into skepticism, and skepticism is very difficult to erase. Perhaps what they need most right now is not more interviews or touching speeches, but silence. Because only when they are silent can people observe how they live, what they do, and whether they are really different from the image they once condemned. The public does not hate them, they just no longer believe. And trust, once lost, cannot be bought back with money or fame. The night in Los Angeles was a sad yet very real moment. Between the glitz of Hollywood and the ceremonial royal family, Harry and Meghan were at a crossroads. They were no longer dukes, but they had never been real stars. And perhaps in their quest for freedom, they had lost the most important thing, sincerity in the eyes of others. What about you? Do you think Harry and Meghan can win back the public's sympathy? Or is the booing in Los Angeles the end of the fairy tale that has captivated the world? Leave a comment below to share your thoughts. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Royal News so you don't miss the latest behind-the-scenes stories about the royal family. See you in the next video.